One Friday night at choir practice, I happened to mention that I was going to be preaching about sex on Sunday. One of the choir, who shall remain nameless, immediately responded, "Oh no, I've been doing that all day." And after everyone had had a good laugh at her, the lady in question had a wonderful blush, but she explained that what she meant was that she had been teaching her children at school about personal and social development all day. That was what she was up to. But this story of the beheading of John the Baptist is one of the more gruesome stories in the Bible. Gruesome not just because of the hideous notion of presenting a man's head on a platter, but I think even more so because of what it says about the power of seduction, the allure of sex. Well, it certainly worked on Herod. He paid no attention to the fact that this dancing girl in her dance of the 7 veils was his niece and his stepdaughter. Rather, what he saw was an alluring young woman. You can imagine him sort of sighing and mooning over the girl, can't you? It's like some lustful old man. At the end of her dance, captivated by her beauty and letting his guard down for a moment, he said, "Ask me for whatever you want and I will give it to you." One rendering of this story in another gospel says that he offered her even up to half his kingdom. Well, that was it. The girl rushed back to her mother, who seems to have been a bit of a manipulative sort of person. She saw her chance to get rid of this prophet John, who had been a thorn in her side for a long time, especially condemning her marriage to the man who had been her brother-in-law. "Ask him for the head of John the Baptist," she said. And so, because he couldn't go back on his royal word in front of his guests, Herod reluctantly ordered John to be executed. Herod had weakened. The power of the sexual urge is very strong. And throughout history, great men have often been brought down by it. Helen of Troy, Cleopatra, Delilah. The ancient myths are laden by men who have gone to their deaths for beautiful women. Sex-starved sailors have often been lured to the rocks by the mere possibility of glimpsing a mermaid. And we've seen it in our own time, haven't we? How the allure of sex, the seduction of sex, has brought down 2 of our national broadcasters in recent months. And we know the power of seduction. We've seen the perfume adverts and the car commercials. At the darker end of seduction, people get drawn into obsessions over sex. They give in to primal urges at all sorts of levels, from pornography all the way down to the great evil of paedophilia. Well, we might well ask, what's all this about? How has this sexual urge within us become so fundamental to us? Why is it so strong? If our picture of God is of one who designs the world with intricate care, what, we might wonder, is God doing when he makes us to be such powerfully sexual people? You see, our sexuality is a gift from God. It's a gift that enables us to connect with other people. When 2 people are in love, we're not at all surprised when one of them is able to sense at a deep level how the other is feeling, are we? But that ability to have compassion for others isn't just something that manifests itself in a couple's relationship. It's something that is in us all, waiting to be fanned into desire for one particular person, but always there, subliminally, in the way in which we feel and we love and we care for everyone around us. The sexual urge helps us to connect with others when it's kept under control. Because, like all of God's gifts, it does need to be carefully and properly managed. Instead of being a force for love and compassion and for commitment to others, it can be twisted into a morbid, self-satisfying desire for personal gratification. The Bible teaches us that we find our fullest expression of our humanity through loving God and loving our neighbor. But when we start to seek our own gratification first, well, that gets out of balance, doesn't it? Of course, it isn't only sex that can seduce us. The world is full of many seductive temptations. We can be seduced, for example, into believing that wealth will make us happy, or that a new set of clothes or that new car will fulfill our deepest desire, even though we know in our heads that today's precious purchase is tomorrow's charity shop donation, isn't it? How can we stay in balance when so-called dances of the seven veils are being danced around us all the time? Well, Jesus gave us a piece of advice that may guide us. He said in Matthew chapter 6, "Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." You see, the way that we choose to spend our money or our time says a great deal about which seductions we have given into. Let's try a little exercise together. Let me invite you to think about what you spend your spare money on. After all the essential stuff, once the mortgage is paid and, the electric bill, which is ever rising, and the food is in the cupboard, what do you spend your spare cash on? And then ask yourself, what is the largest single expenditure that I make from that disposable income? Just think about it. What do you spend your spare cash on? Is it life-affirming? Does it reflect your and my calling to be people who love God and love our neighbor? How does the amount that you spend on that one item or one luxury compare to the amount of money that you give to relieve poverty or sickness, or for the work of God in this church? Jesus said, "Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." Now, you can, of course, do precisely that same exercise with your time. We all have at least some spare time. How much of that time is used up with things that are life-affirming and love-sharing? And how much is spent on things that we have been seduced by, or seduced into doing by marketing managers and television producers? Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Please don't misunderstand me. I don't want us to leave here today feeling miserable and guilt-ridden about every cup of coffee we've bought at Costa when we could have given the money to the homeless. I simply want to invite us all, myself included, in the light of the story of Herodias' daughter, to become alert to this question: what am I seduced by? There are very few of us who are not, at some time or another, seduced by something. Our task is to be people who are striving to become more like our Creator. And in that task, we have to recognize what seduces us and then learn from the story of Herod. We're invited by Jesus to lay aside whatever our personal seduction may be before it consumes us, as it did for the BBC newsreader recently, or it leads us into real difficulty, as it did for Herod. Our task is to redistribute our time and our money into spending and into tasks that are life-affirming, life-enhancing, and love-giving. For where our treasure is, say it with me, there will our hearts be also. Amen? Amen.